is live.
Are we going?
Yeah.
Oh, all right. So, this first question, all you have to do is, for all of these, you look at the child or look at the offspring, and then you kind of just work backwards. Okay. So for A, we know that the child is homozygous recessive for um, blood type for O and for RH, and then homozygous dominant for M. Um, so we know that the father is type A blood, is RH positive, and homozygous dominant for M. So that means that he's heterozygous for A, so he has IA and then little I, and then heterozygous for R, so big R and little r. And then the mother is homozygous recessive for blood type, um, RH type, and then heterozygous for MN. And if you cross those together, you get the offspring. For B, um, it wants to know the proportion of children who will be born to parents of those genotypes, or what proportion will have that phenotype. So all you have to do is um, do the crosses for each of the alleles and then find the three combinations that will give you that phenotype and then multiply them together. Multiply those ratios together. So there's 1/4 IB recessive I, and then 1/4 homozygous recessive R, and then 1/2 heterozygous MN will give you that. C, it's the same thing. So you just find the three alleles, find the three ratios that make up that phenotype, multiply them together, and you'll get the answer. And then for D, it's a little bit different. We need to find whether or not it's possible for those two parents to have this certain kind of genotype in their offspring. So the father is false. He can have that genotype in the offspring if he is heterozygous for blood type, for RH type, um, and then homozygous for N, and then the mother is heterozygous for A, heterozygous for RH, and heterozygous for MN. That way, it gives you the possibility of getting homozygous recessive for blood type, homozygous recessive for RH, and heterozygous for MN. All right, and question 2. This one's pretty simple. Um, all you have to do is look at the ratios and um, figure out the parents that produced that phenotype. So for A, we have all of the different phenotypes, so we know that both parents have to be heterozygous for all traits. So that's pretty simple. Um, for B, um, we know that we have 3 rows and 1 single. Um, so you have to make sure that, so you can't just have, how do I explain this? Um, so in order to have a single, you have to make sure that there's a possibility to have um, all recessive alleles. Okay. Um, yeah, there you go. So you have to make sure that there's a possibility to have all recessive alleles. So it's a heterozygous for R in both parents and then a homozygous for P in both parents, I think is what's going to give you that ratio. And then for C, we have to make sure that it's a ratio of 1 to 1. So if you have a heterozygous for R in the first parent and a homozygous recessive for R in the second parent, that's going to give you 1/2 rows, or 1/2 heterozygous and then 1/2 homozygous, and then it's just homozygous recessive for P to give you the single, and that will give you the ratio of 1 to 1. And then for D, you have to make sure that you have the possibility of getting the 3 walnut and 1 rose. So you have to make sure that your R's are homozygous dominant and your P's are homozygous or heterozygous.
Okay, for problem 3, we're given a lot of crosses, and we're trying to determine the allele inheritance type. So the first step that we want to look at is the top 3. This is if you breed each kind with its same kind. We find it interesting that Palomino doesn't just end up in Palomino offspring. There's also chestnut and cremello. So there must be a combination of alleles that creates a Palomino. If we look at the chestnut cross, all of them were chestnut, and the cremello cross, all of them were cremello. So working that out, we find that there is a incomplete dominance inheritance, like we had with blood type. Well, not blood type, I'm sorry. With the flower color where they blend and become pink. It's the same with these. So if you have a Palomino, you're going to have both alleles. You're going to have the chestnut allele and the cremello allele. And if you have both of those, it'll be Palomino. If you have the chestnut allele, both, you'll always be chestnut. And for cremello, it takes 2 cremello alleles. So you have to just take what you have for the offspring, work backwards, and find out what kind of inheritance type it is.
Okay, so for the next part, the fill in the blanks is talking about an enzyme that's used when these bloods cross, and then that was glycosyl transferase. And since the person has B blood, the enzyme is going to put galactose to the surface carbohydrates. So then for B, it's asking about the heterozygous having a reproductive advantage over the 2 homozygote classes, and this is over dominance, and it's also called like heterozygote advantage because it's advantageous to have this because it increases the chance to survive and reproduce. Or for number C, we think complete penetrance. Because the normal phenotype that's supposed to be shown by a certain genotype isn't always present. The next part D is epistasis, because one of the alleles of the gene is masking the phenotypic effects of the allele of the second gene. E, we think the disease is PKU. I can't say the other word. It's a little tough, and that's because that disease itself basically the person cannot metabolize the amino acid phenolphthalein, and so to adjust the person's diet will help fix that problem. After that, part F. So for the max trait, we believe that it's showing a Mendelian. It should show a Mendelian inheritance, but we're seeing a 2-to-1 phenotype ratio among the offspring. The dominant M homozygous offspring that is there is going to not be lethal. It's going to be lethal. It's not going to survive, and so we think that it suggests that there's going to be a lethal allele inheritance. G, so this is talking about and for these two problems, G and H, we need to look at and their ratios, and then when we're multiplying them together to figure out, for this first one, whether or not they're dextral or sinistral. And so, because of I believe it's the dominant D, right? That's where they're going to be dextral if they have that in the. And so we found it to be 45%, and then the rest is 55%. That'll be sinistral. And then for H, kind of same thing. We just need to look at the females, and we see that 40% of the female plants are going to be green. 40% of the females are white. So that's going to show us what are going to be in the opposing plants.
In question 5, we're again looking at ratios of offspring, their phenotypic ratios, and trying to work back to find the genotype and the phenotype of the parents. So we see that there is a kind of allele hierarchy. I don't know what the proper term is, where one is dominant over the other, which is dominant in this big long chain. So if we look over here, we want 50% of our offspring to be black and 50% to be sepia. In order to be black, you have to have the B allele, and it's dominant to everything else. So as long as we have that in our parents, we'll be good. And the sepia, though, you have to have 2 S's because the B allele is dominant to it. So if you take a black parent, which has a BS genotype, and one sepia with an SS genotype, and you do a Punnett square, you'll get 50 black and 50 sepia, or a 1-to-1 ratio. If we look at part B, it's done similarly. We look and see that we need 2 sepia. To make a sepia, we have to have 2 S's, and no, we don't. Sorry. Cream offspring is always overridden by sepia. So we have to make sure that in our cross, we get one homozygous grouping for the cream. So if you have 2 sepia parents that are SC, you'll get that ratio. C, we have 50% black, 25% sepia, and 25% white. We know to get white, we need a homozygous pairing for the W's. And in order to get sepia, we just need it to not have black. And for black, as long as the black is present, it'll be overridden. So we have 1 black parent, which has a BW genotype, and 1 sepia parent with an SW genotype. For part D, we want 75% black and 25% white. If we have 2 black parents, offspring is going to be homozygous for the W trait. So we know that only 25% will be white and the rest should be black since there's no other alleles. Thank you guys. That is our